Welcome you today to our second keynote address for this focus on mental health during pandemic. Diane Sago, if we were in person, I would give you this gift of tobacco, the tobacco tie, and request for you sharing your knowledge today, a gift that will carry on into many classrooms and workspaces, and for that we are very grateful for. I recognize that this may not be the Haudenosaunee way, but I want to express our gratitude for you being here today. Diane, I will offer this gift to the trees in the side garden here outside of the ETFO office in Toronto. That is where we usually hold our smudging spaces as well. This is learning I am embarking on along with my colleagues today as we work to move in a good way.
Thank you so much, Zeba. That's lovely.
And I will introduce Diane to everyone. Diane Longboat is a member of the Turtle Clan Mohawk Nation at Six Nations Grand River Territory, Canada, and a citizen of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. She is a ceremonial leader, traditional teacher, and healer. Diane's work is braided at the intersection of health, education, and traditional knowledge systems of Indigenous nations. Since 2013, Diane has served as elder for the Centre of Addiction and Mental Health, CAMH, Canada's largest and leading institution for clinical services and research for mental well-being. Diane leads the development of the ceremony grounds for CAMH to establish the Sweat Lodge, Sacred Fire, and Medicine Gardens, including the policy development required to support traditional Indigenous healing as a standard of practice. Today, as Senior Manager of Strategic Initiatives, her work involves organizational strategy for enhancing culturally grounded services to First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people, and advancing the CAMH Truth and Reconciliation Action Plan. Diane is a founder of the Soul of the Mother, a healing and teaching lodge on the shores of the Grand River at Six Nations Grand River Territory, having extensive relationships with First Nations in Canada, United States, and globally. Diane is also the founder of First Nations House, Office of Aboriginal Student Services and Programs at the University of Toronto. As a professional educator with a master's degree in education, Diane has taught at universities and lectured nationally and internationally on the topic of traditional Indigenous knowledge systems and spirituality as the fuel for systems transformation. She has published extensively on Indigenous education law and jurisdiction for Ontario Native Counseling Association, the Chiefs of Ontario, and the Assembly of First Nations. Today, Diane coaches many hospital CEOs nationally on cultural safety, anti-Indigenous racism in the healthcare system, and reconciliation. Diane is a builder who believes in systems transformation to serve First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples with honor and respect, embodying cultures and languages as building blocks for a new economy, a new healthcare system, a new education system, and a new human services system in a true democratic structure. Diane, I'll turn it to you for your address. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zeba. I want to, first of all, say how grateful I am to have time with you today. And I want to open with my language because that always helps me to connect to my ancestors. And I want to invite them to come in and be with your ancestors. Sego Scano Sewuguego, Kahontakwas Yunyats. My Mohawk name is Kahontakwas. It means she's picking sweetgrass. And I am Turtle Clan. I belong to that family. And when people in our nation meet each other, they've never seen each other before, there's a term in Mohawk that really essentially means, where are you from? And the response is always, this is the clay that I am made from. And so you'll start to see how important it is, that connection to the land, as we move through this time together. And this is an important time for us because we are at the I would say the epicenter of a huge change in society. And so education, and especially time with our children, is the critical piece that's going to bring change forward, and not just for the present, but for the coming generation. So I want you to feel today in our time together that it's really an open dialogue I'm going to share some things with you, but I want you to feel like it's a safe space. And there may be some things that are triggering for you. So if that is the case, I ask you to dig deep and pull your courage to that forefront and enter that brave space that maybe you've never had to step into that before with our people and talking about these issues. So, all the questions that are going to be coming will be coming in the chat. They're going to be coming. I won't see them. But we're going to have a dialogue at the end and a lovely time for Q&A. And I want you to feel a sense of freedom and confidentiality with that dialogue. And as much as we are recording this session today, the question period is not going to be recorded. And so we'll have a time of real freedom together to be able to see and explore some of the challenges that I think are coming our way. So let me just put this on for you. So today, I want to acknowledge, first of all the hard work that went into this piece, which was putting on this conference for you and the challenges that come with it, virtually. It's a time when you look at, you've had some extraordinary teachers and speakers talking about the mind, the brain development. You've had, last night with Dr. Robin, you had a fabulous presentation on the emotions, the heart. So today, what I really want to do with you is to focus on the spirit, because the spirit is often the thing that we don't talk about. That whole notion of separating, politics from spirit is not part of our culture. Our culture, our leaders are embodied with spirit. And in order to be leaders, they have to have that embodiment as Haudenosaunee. So today I want to share with you some things that I think might really help you in this journey. And usually before we begin, I burn some medicine for us. And I've done that. And I want to just take a moment to acknowledge the Creator and the ceremony that happened this morning at sunrise. So in our tradition, before anything is going to be shared of importance, there's always words that are given to the Creator. I do it at sunrise. Sometimes I do it with my sacred pipe. Sometimes I do it with sacred tobacco. And if I'm traveling, I put the tobacco on the land. If I'm in a place where I can offer it off the balcony, I do that. Sometimes I'll put it in the water. But what is most important are the words that go with that offering. And so this morning at sunrise, because we are going to be doing something really important here together today that's going to stretch all of us, I asked the Creator to hear me as I gave thanks. And we have in our tradition the Ahodonkaliwirekwa, the sacredness of those words that precede all the business of the day. When you do it privately, it's for yourself, your family, your clan, your nation, maybe your community. For the world, it can be for the world. I do it for the world each day. And I did a full ceremony this morning. So the words that I'm going to offer now are those words that I want to add to the morning ceremony. Nyawa samwedi samkanalankwa, Kahontakwas yumyats. My name is Kahontakwas, and this day, samwedi our Creator, the one who made all things, I bring my family to you, to that sacred altar underneath the sun. And I say to you this day, Creator, how grateful I am to be part of this family. The human family with all of its faith traditions and colors of skin and cultures and languages and ways of being on the earth. So magnificent and so beautiful. Thank you, Samwedi, for allowing me to have life at this time and to be part of this great human family. I give thanks this day, Samwedi, that you had a vision to create a mirror image of the sky world. And that mirror image is what we call our Mother, the Earth. that on the earth are plant life that are the oldest form of life here, medicine plants, food plants, magnificent plants, each of them having a very sacred duty to perform on the earth, all needed on the earth. The great waters of the earth, salt waters, fresh waters, rain waters, and birth waters, signaling the continuance of life here. Give thanks for all the animal life that is here, all of those that are brothers to us, sisters to us. We take our clan symbols from them. We give thanks for all of the animal life that is here. We acknowledge and give thanks and lift up the bird life. They sing such beautiful songs to us and they bring us joy. Some stay with us during the winter and others go south, but return, we hope, in the springtime. So we're very grateful to them. We honor and lift up all of those beings that are alive in the waters, the great whales of the earth that contain the wisdom of creation. They understand that. We give thanks to the grandmother turtle who holds up the earth on her back. We understand that from our creation story. Above the earth are unseen forces, the 4 grandfather winds that refresh and cleanse Mother Earth, and the little whales, the thunder beings, 10 thunder beings that roll about the face of Mother Earth, electrifying and ionizing the air and renewing our energy as living beings here. And the great waters that they bring from the spirit world, from the high heavens, that nourish and restore Mother Earth here, the land, the air, the water, and all life beings. We say that there are 4 sacred beings, teachers to us, that the Creator put in place to watch over us and protect us and guide us. For we are only weak and frail human beings with only 1 drop of wisdom. And we need those sacred teachers to remind us of the pathway that the Creator gave us. So from time to time, the Creator allows one of those sacred beings to walk among us and give us those reminders, those dreams, and those visions. We acknowledge all the stars that represent our ancestors, the grandmother moon, who is the leader of all the female life, taking care of fertility and moving the great tides of waters upon the earth to refresh all life in the waters. We also honor and give thanks to our elder brother, the sun, who walks across the sky from east to west each day, bringing sunlight and renewing and helping all things to have life here on the earth. They say that there is a beautiful star formation called the Milky Way. And the Milky Way joins the earth to the sky world, to that place of peace where we originated. There are 2 lanes on that Milky Way, one for the new unborn that are coming into this earth to have an earthly experience as a spiritual being, and those who have finished their spiritual mandates here on the earth, and their souls travel on that other side of the highway back to that place of peace for that peace and restoration on the other side. We find the fires of our ancestors burning there, and we thank those ancestors of all of our nations, from the beginning of time to our beloveds who are passing now. And we say thank you to the ancestors for continuing to pray for us. They know what it is to be a weak and frail human being and needing so much help and so much guidance. And they pray for us from that place of peace. We understand that there is a council fire that burns in that place of peace, and that are seated around that council fire are great spiritual leaders, healers, prophets, visionaries that have been helping the Creator from the beginning of time. Some are spiritual beings that assisted the Creator with the whole process of creation here on the earth. They are also seated there. And in our prayer, the structure of the prayer that we were given, the Creator always says, leave me to the last. The last is always the most humble. Leave me to the last and celebrate my creation that I placed here for all of you as human beings that were created last in the order of creation. I place this creation here for you so that you can thrive. And so today, I love to share those words with you, the words that come before all others. And I say to you, Samboe Tison, thank you for listening to my words. Thank you for acknowledging the family that I bring forward today, for they are the cherished ones that are raising up our children and spending so much time with them in a school system that we want to say today, that school system must embody spirit if it is to prepare our children for that next evolution of the human family. So, Nyawa Creator. And thank you to everyone who joined me in that prayer. I so appreciate it because I acknowledge and lift you up as having beautiful faith traditions and ways also of giving thanks. So I want to introduce you to the concept of Orenda as a great life force, a living spirit that is in the land, all of creation, all of the natural beings that I just raised up to you, and all of the human life that is here, connecting that human life to the Orenda, the living spirit, the life force that is in the universe, in all the planets, the stars, all of the moons that are in the universe. So beautiful. And so that great life force pulsates within the universe. And so I present to you today some thoughts that I hope will stretch your professional capacity to embody spirit in the work that you do, not religion, but spirit. And so I present to you this is our ceremonial land at Six Nations. Those white teepees are fasting lodges, the little domed areas that you see to the left, but above the roof of that lodge, those are sweat lodges. And that is the original lodge that we put up to hold the sacred fire that was given in vision in 1994. And the spirits call that fire the sacred fire of peace. Our chiefs and our clan mothers and our faith keepers teach us that when we go out into the world to meet people of different nations, to always bring to you their greetings, their prayers for you, that you will be well and at peace. And so this is a photo of the Grand River, our property for ceremonies. This is the new lodge today. And so I want you to keep the image of this lodge in your mind. It's called Soul of the Mother, and it is a healing and a teaching lodge on the shores of the Grand River, holding about 60 to 70 people. The river is downhill past that lodge. And this is the sacred fire that I want you to know about, because of all the things that you will see with Indigenous peoples throughout the Americas. You will always notice that in all important gatherings, in all ceremonies, that there will be a sacred fire that is burning. That sacred fire is the portal to the spirit world, where all of the ancestors sit, the spiritual beings that are the helpers of the Creator and the Creator. And we say that the Creator is a great mystery, neither male nor female, but a great life force. So today when we get together, it's a very special time. And I want you to know that the most important piece will be the dialogue. And please focus on the values that we are talking about here today, because those values are the underpinnings of our Indigenous knowledge systems in a very general way. And they do impact systems change for all children, whether that systems change is the economy, the social safety net, the health system, the education system. It's the values that underpin those systems that make them unique, but also make them very innovative in this time period. We also want to talk about the spiritual nature of the child and how to support every child to thrive. And I'm going to share some prophecies later on with you about the children that we have now. So I'm in my generation, 70 years old. My children are in their late 30s now. And I will say to you that the children born to us now, and you will see them in the school systems, are very different. And we're going to talk about what those differences are and how to embrace those children and make sure that they have an opportunity to thrive. We're also going to look a little bit at the calls to action for implementation from the Truth and Reconciliation Report. This is Mohawk Institute Residential School. This is the school in my community that was originally run by the Anglicans and put in place by, authorized by what was then just the governor of Upper Canada. This school was put in place in 1828, and only really, it was just for boys kind of to learn farming techniques and work the land, but it really opened as a school in about 1831. So this school, this residential school, stood at Six Nations in Brantford from 1831 to 1970. And in that school, there was profound misuse of children. They were, the girls were taught cooking, sewing, cleaning. The boys were taught to farm, work outside in the fields. As much as they grew so many fresh vegetables and fruits, the children got very little to none of it. It was sold to support the school. The kids were severely sexually abused, physically abused in the school, starved, beaten. And there's a room if you ever have a chance to do an actual on-site tour of this residential school, below the stairs in the basement is a triangular shaped door. It has a little hole carved in it, just kind of at eye height for an adult. So maybe, I don't know, 5, 6 or so. That peephole allowed an adult to look inside that room. And what was inside that room were 2 little boys who were taken there. They were put inside a dark room, and they were told that they had to fight inside that room, and only one of them could come out. There was no food, no water, no bathroom. And so when you think about lateral violence today, lateral violence not only in our own communities, but lateral violence in society, go back to that story. And I hope that each and every one of you will have a chance to look at the website of the Woodland Cultural Center in Brantford and take a virtual tour of the residential school. It has been refurbished now and renovated so that it becomes a monument to not necessarily the children who pass there, but it becomes a monument to remind society as a whole of values and behaviors that should never again surface. So that's what that school was all about. There was a little bit of learning. Some of the children would say we had a half day of classes and then we worked outside for the rest of the day. They recall always being hungry. So I want to share a picture with you. This is my family. This is my grandfather's property on 4th Line at Six Nations. My grandfather, of course, is the gentleman on the left. His name was Dan Froman. He was born in 1875, the year before the Indian Act was put in place in 1876. And the gentleman on the right is my uncle. His nickname was Sonny Boy. Everybody's got a nickname. Sometimes you never find out anybody's real name till the funeral, and you say, did you know that his name was, anyway, keep that in your back pocket. So we have my grandfather who went to the residential school. He married my grandmother, also went to the residential school, the same one I just described. And they had 12 children. So at the turn of the century, everybody farmed. If you wanted to eat, you farmed. And so my grandfather had a large farm. The kids helped on the farm, of course. They also went to a little log school, one-room schoolhouse. They had to walk down the roads. No bus system, of course, in those days. At the turn of the century and into the 30s, if you wanted to go to high school, you had to walk from Ohsweken into Caledonia. And I want to say my aunt, Hazel, walked that route and went as far as she could in high school, walked every day to school and all the way back. So it's quite a distance. I want to just tell you that when you think about the impact of the residential school system, that was my grandfather, who was born in 1875. And this is not Six Nations, but it gives you a sense of the militaristic background of those schools, separation of boys and girls, the whole notion that playing with the boys is dirty, playing with the girls is dirty. And so, the whole notion of yourself, your body, how you take care of yourself is challenging. Today, when you think about sex, you think about marriage, think about relationships. That's how these kids in the generation and right up until 1970 were treated. This is my aunt, who went to the residential school as well. So she's the second oldest daughter of my grandfather. So you see her there leaning against one of those old cars, probably from the late 20s, early 30s. And she went there and she hated it so much that she walked home from Brantford all the way to Ohsweken. And that's a long way for an 11-year-old to go. But as soon as she got home, the school superintendents came after her and took her back in no time flat. So needless to say, no language, no culture, no history, no sense of identity and pride in oneself at the residential school in Brantford. So this is my school. So now this is the Indian Day School. And so this is the school that I went to. That little house that you see to the far left of the school is the outhouse. No playground, no sports. And what is inside that school is barren of anything that tells you who you are as a Mohawk person, Cayuga, Seneca, Oneida, Tuscarora. There's nothing in that school system that teaches you about your language, your history, your culture. And so those schools, again, where there were 11 of them throughout the community. And so that's why there are all these payback programs now for Indian day schools as well as residential schools, because the generations of our people who came through there from 1831 to the 1970s, there was an absolute negation of culture. So I often wondered, what is it? Why did this happen? What was happening to people who convened meetings in and around the Constitution of Canada, who formed the Indian Act, and prior to that had laws, actual laws, of not being able to leave the community, a pass system. So what was in the mindset of those empires and the values that they carried? So we know that colonization has been rampant throughout the world, rampant. So the fall of the Roman Empire, you saw the extent of that Roman Empire when you were studying history. The end of the Viking explorations. I only knew the Vikings went as far as the Mediterranean when I watched the show on TV, The Vikings. I had no idea that they colonized that far. I did know that, in the 1300s, the Black Death came as a huge pandemic, killing 25 million people throughout Europe. And it also came at a time of political upheaval and climate change with drought. We're also, looking at the effect of the Inquisition during that time period. People think that the Inquisition was like maybe just 13, 14, maybe into the 1500s, but it actually went to the early 1700s. And so a large number of women healers were killed at that time, torture and killing of thousands. But things began to change. Humans evolve. And so in that time of the 1600s to the 1800s, it's the beginning of the age of reason, where the mind becomes really challenged, important, revered. So we're seeing individualism rise at this time, not so much community-based. There's secularism, separating spirit and religion from the functions of society, the importance of science, experimentation, and the shift to capitalism and colonization becoming really prevalent at that time. So I want to refer you to the Catholic Church at this time. The Vatican law made by the Pope was supreme law. And so both Pope Nicholas and Pope Alexander had doctrines that they issued at that time called the Doctrine of Discovery. And here's basically what it says, that explorers, so the Christopher Columbuses and partners, subsequent partners, were awarded the right to invade, capture, enslave, and subjugate non-Christians because they were deemed to be heathens and subhuman. So Queen Isabella of Spain, King Ferdinand of Spain. Spain was the most prosperous and powerful country in Europe at the time in the 1400s, and went to the Pope for this dispensation called the Doctrine of Discovery. And so the Pope said, you have to test, the people that you're running into. And so he gave them a song to be sung in Latin. There was a required response to that song. And if you did sing that song, then you were deemed to be a Christian, and then you were deemed to be human and deemed to have a soul. However, if you did not respond to that song, the explorers could kill at will with no repercussions on your soul, because the heathens are really not human. So it's possible to take their land, their resources, to dehumanize them, and the lawful goods become that of the conquerors. So in case we're thinking that Doctrine of Discovery in the 1450s and 1490s is old stuff, I want to say to you that it's alive and well in Canada today through the Indian Act that was put in place in 1876 and amended again in 1951 and 1985. And it's alive and well in the United States. The city of Sherrill, New York versus the Oneida Nation, the Supreme Court decision in 2005. So I'll take you back to when George Washington and his colleagues formulated the Constitution of the United States. They wanted land, and it's always, always about the land. George Washington sent General Sullivan on a campaign to remove the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Iroquois, thus Six Nations, from their homelands, and to remove them and put them, scatter them to the wind and take their land. So when the Oneidas today live at their community called Oneida 32 Acres, small land, they bought land that they wanted to have restored under tribal sovereignty, because in the United States, as well as in Canada, Indigenous lands are under a different law than crown lands for us in Canada and state lands in the United States. But it was Ruth Bader Ginsburg who wrote the final decision from for this US Supreme Court decision in 2005. And here's what she said. Under the doctrine of discovery, fee title to the lands occupied by the Indians when the colonists arrived became vested in the sovereign, which would be the king of whatever country was claiming those lands, whether it was France or the Netherlands or Britain. First, the discovering European nation, and later the original states in the United States. So the doctrine of discovery, all of its values, all of its thinking, all of its feeling that continues throughout the generations and the consciousness of the subsequent generations, that Indigenous people are somehow subhuman, not as good as, that continues. And that forms the foundation of racism in public consciousness today. So I asked myself, what is it that the Creator gave us so that we could be strong? And what our education system look like? What is it supposed to be for our people? And so, in case you think that, the land was vacant, terra nullius, these are some of the Indigenous nations from north to south, east to west. So Orenda is the spirit or life force of creation, and everything is connected by that life force. So there's not just a life force in the natural world, but there's a life force in the land. And part of the instructions that we were given in our creation story is that ethic of care for the land is called first law. And it's to maintain the balance of everything that the Creator put in place in the natural world, to take care of creation and to take care of each other. And so that's the spirit of the land, the spirit of the human being. And I told you earlier that I shared with you when people say, where are you from? We respond and we say, I am made from the clay of the Turtle Clan, and this is the area that I come from. So we believe that we are the soil that walks, that we are made from that soil, that the Creator gave us life from the land. And so we are embedded in our cultures with codes of conduct for maintaining peace and creating a cooperative, thriving society. And the foundation of that society are values: love, reciprocity, compassion, and respect. We believe in the Creator, and that was one of the things that the explorers never really understood about Indigenous nations, thinking that we were godless. You may have read something by Dr. Greg Kahontakwas from the University of New Mexico. He talks a lot about the people from that region, and he talks again about the values. So if you think about Indigenous nations in this region, Anishinaabe, Ojibwe people, as well as Cree people, as well as Haudenosaunee, the Six Nations, Seneca, Cayuga, Oneida, Onondaga, Mohawk, and later the Tuscarora. There are some common values that we all share, which is that there is spiritual agency in the land, that everything that exists in the universe is in perpetual, dynamic, and multidimensional harmony, that all elements are sentient and alive, that every element has a purpose, a role, and a duty, and that how we as human beings acknowledge that is through ceremonies that lift up and acknowledge the natural world. So we have a cycle of ceremonies that we put through in our community each month. And so we're coming up now to calling the sap from the trees, the maple syrup ceremonies. So dreams and rituals, elders carry the wisdom that assist us in understanding how this Orenda works in the world. And I like to include this because I include your children in all of what I'm sharing with you today, the embodiment of all of these values, for them to fall in love with creation. One of the clan mothers, one of the women leaders in my community said, if you do not teach your children to fall in love with creation, they will never defend it. So the Arenda learning system matrix that I think about and work on to develop is that the health of the planet depends on the health of land-based Indigenous cultures all over the world and their continuance of knowledge of how to live on that land, the patterns of life, and the giving gratitude through ceremonies and healing of the land, the air, and the water. So there are land-based Indigenous cultures all over the world that must be supported, and their knowledge of how to live is critical to the survival of human beings. So our challenge then as educators is to look for the values embedded in the first law. And in a pragmatic form, we need to implement them in this modern context with all of the knowledge that we have and all of the areas of study that we have. We need to put both systems together, Western modern knowledge, Indigenous wisdom knowledge for population health, for the wise use of our resources, for the restoration of the land, for looking at a new economy, housing for all, laws and social systems that celebrate everybody. So when we think about society's worldviews incorporating spirituality, what I want to say to you is that in the decades of my life, I have often prayed for the spiritual notion of helping each other, living in community, supporting each other with kindness, with generosity, with love, treating each other with respect. I've prayed about that and in all the ceremonies that I've done. And what I see happening today is that many national and international organizations are coming to our little lodge, our sacred fire of peace, and they're saying, how do we incorporate spiritual guidance into the strategic plans that we are doing for our organization? Society is changing today, and they're realizing that science does not have all of the answers for us. It has some answers, but science has to be tempered with spirit and ethics and values that are good for the commons. And so things are starting to shift now in the consciousness of society. And what I see happening is that there's a profound shift to systems thinking, that we're no longer siloed or content to be in a silo, and that there's a shift. And certainly in my community, there's a shift to education and spirituality. So this is the question that I have for you. I want to ask you, what are the child's gifts to manifest in the world in order to create harmony? When you look at those children sitting in the classrooms, every single one of them has profound gifts. What are we doing to encourage the development of each of those gifts, all different, but all needing to work together? And how do we teach those children to thrive in the world? And what can they teach us about thriving in the world? We know that children are no longer in society. They're no longer at the center. And I really believe one of the outcomes of this pandemic is charging us with reevaluating what is really important in life. And in this is a vision that we put on paper. And in that vision, the Creator is in the center, supported by the beauty of Mother Earth that sustains our life here. But the ones that are seated closest to that fire are the children, the most precious gifts from the Creator. They're the ones that are the new teachers for us. They're the ones that are going to bring the change into the world. We need to give them everything that they need in order to thrive: love, compassion, respect, nurturing, and safety. So Indigenous languages, because they don't have European roots, they're verb-based. Our languages are verb-based. And so when we think about what is it how we could describe a new system of learning, we have to go back to our languages that embody a whole conceptual vision of what is good education. And so what we would say is, Ganikon Rirotsala. Ga, that first two letters, Ga, means all things are created in this way. Nikon, it's the life force of creation, that orenda that we talk about, but it's much more than that, because it's a spiritual intelligence that we share with all the beings in creation. It's like a spiritual language of communication. Iyo are the good traits that we value: empathy, kindness, generosity, caring, love, above all love. And shla is a state of being. Ganikon Ryotsala. And we say, in order to have this state of being, we need to have a good mind. And so there's a concept: take care of your mind. Watch what you see on the internet, on TV, in movies, in books, how you choose to live your life, where you choose to walk in the world. Take care of your mind. And so we have ceremonies that we use to give thanks, to energize all of creation. We also have codes and protocols and values and ethics and laws of how to live in the world. And I think, one of those outcomes is that having a good mind means you make clear decisions that benefit yourself, your family, your clan, and your nation. And they're based again on those seminal values. So when we say Ganikon Ryotsala, what we're aiming for, this is the goal we're aiming for: a natural human being with a good mind, sharing a consciousness of relationship to all beings in creation, equitably, inclusively, embracing the richness of diversity, that life itself is healing, transforming, and evolving. So you see the values that are out there in society today, and the profound sickness of greed that is embodied in that capitalistic economy that we all live in, that makes some people economic slaves and creates a 1% that holds all of the goods. So now you start to see the question becomes, how do we raise our children so that we can embody these values for the good of all, for the highest good of all, for the commons? And so I would say to you that you can't know all of this knowledge. And as teachers of our children in the system, and as teachers of all the children in the system, you should never feel like you're alone. These are some of the elders and traditional people from the East Coast of Canada to the Rockies who are profoundly incredible teachers, elders, wisdom keepers, healers who can help in the school system and do help in the school system. And so that's how the school system needs to shift, to make a place for Indigenous voice in the system. So we say that Western knowledge is secured to its origins, and this came from Carol Hopkins, a colleague of ours who is with the ED of the Thunderbird Partnership Foundation. She's an incredible woman leader. And so she shared some slides with us. And one of the things that she talked about was knowing how knowledge is tethered to its source. And so she talked about Western knowledge being tethered to public knowledge, first of all, that it's reductionist, that it's evidence-based, that that theories are theories until they're proven, and that there's individual ownership or authorship by a specific group. Indigenous knowledge systems are carried by the teachers, specified teachers for the benefit of the people, the clans, the communities, and the nations. They're held in trust for the benefit of the commons, and the knowledge is considered to be cultural treasures. It's passed orally in songs, ceremonies, and storytelling, but it's also passed through mnemonic aids. So those would be symbols that we use. And it moves across time and generations to be applied in a modern context. So the ethics of life are the ethics of care for the human family, that these Indigenous knowledge systems support life systems, and they provide a moral compass. So when we make decisions about how should we be in the world, whether it's your business, your family, the education system that serves society, there should be a moral compass and ethical foundation for what we do and how we move within the world. And if we do that, one of the things that we need to go back to, and this is for all the human family, is to understand those original instructions that we were given on how to be human beings in this place that the Creator made for us. And that's where Indigenous knowledge systems can be inspirational. And the challenge then is to take the best of all the knowledge systems and apply them so that what we do have is a healthy planet and healthy people. And Onabanase is Jim Dumont. He's the chief of the Three Fires Medewan Medicine Society of the Anishinaabe Nation. And here's what he said, that Indigenous knowledge is accomplished through Indigenous intelligence, which is the wise and conscientious embodiment of exemplary knowledge and the use of this knowledge in a good, beneficial, and meaningful way. So these are circles of how we generally teach our children, and the ceremonies that go along with the cycles of life. So it always starts in the East. So if you're looking for a pattern of how to bring Indigenous knowledge systems into your curriculum, then you can look at this. There's one for the men, there's one for the women, so boys and girls, and the two-spirit people are the gifted ones that can sit in between. So they'll find their place in these wheels. And so we honor them, we lift them up, and we provide a place for them. And you can look through these wheels because I'm giving you this PowerPoint and you can make reference to it. So here's our challenge. Again, I bring that same slide back to you. We have to bring this knowledge in a pragmatic form and apply it to life today. That's our challenge. And those calls to action from the TRC from 2015, 7 years ago. So we're looking at now age-appropriate mandatory K-12 curriculum and resources on our history, on residential schools, the 60s scoop, missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, treaties, and so on. People need to have a sense of the life of our people in community. And so we need to educate our teachers on how to integrate Indigenous knowledge and pedagogy into the classrooms. Pedagogy, learn by doing. We often will learn at the foot of a master. It's hands-on, it's visual. And so there's so much more, but the Ontario College of Teachers has just released a really beautiful package on Haudenosaunee culture, which will be very helpful in the classroom. And, the calls to action say we need to start to talk together to share our best practices for teaching these issues. And we need to build student capacity to care for each other, to respect each other, for kindness to one another. There's an agency, the OECD has an app called the Kindness app. I think we should be putting that into use here in Canada, because the level of bullying is out of control. And I say that with all due respect for the work of teachers to try to manage this in school. It's out of control. And so we need to build student capacity for kindness. We need to also identify the training needs that teachers have and get busy with that. Developing culturally appropriate curricula, of course, and ensuring that language skills are credited. And we're no longer going to accept the whole notion that I'm not going to teach this because I don't have any Indigenous children in my classroom. That is not a valid excuse, because it is our civic duty. This is our work as Canadians in this country. This is the work that needs to be done. So I turn to Anabinase now. I love him so much. He was my second teacher. My mother and father were my first teachers, my second teacher. And if you want to go on to this particular YouTube channel, I want to give this to you as a gift, because he has, in his address to the Parliament of the World's Religions in 2018, when it was in Toronto, he had the clearest address that I've ever heard about spirit. Who are we as human beings? Where did we originate? How did we get here on the earth? What is it that we need to do for life to flourish here? I think you'll really enjoy it. It's about, I'd say, maybe half an hour long. So I leave you with this image that in the spirit world, there are many, many children that are waiting to be born here on the earth. They're waiting for us to do our best work here, to embody a system of kindness, of generosity, of love and respect. They want to be born here into that system. And so, you know, we have a duty to help each other, to work together to make that happen. And the world changes. The spiritual arenda of the earth changes when it's embodied in that spirit of love. So I want to thank you so much today for listening to me very generously, for the beautiful time that we've spent together. And I sure welcome your questions and your comments now. Nyawa, thank you.